I generally have learned to step back a bit and just calm and kind of just regroup in my head, actually. Like, I don't want to sound cliche saying that, but when you put things into perspective, some things you're like, is it really worth being angry over that?
Hello, Kerrie Phipps here with the Connect with Confidence podcast, and I am super excited to be connecting today with Felicity Taylor, otherwise known as Floss or Flick or Flossie, who I've known actually since she was a little girl, and now she has a little girl or two, or how many, Felicity?
3 girls, 1 boy.
I thought that was the case. So welcome to Connect with Confidence.
Thank you, Kerrie. It's a privilege to be here. I feel very honoured, actually. So thank you for having me.
Well, likewise. You know, something that I guess one of the first things that I got to know about you, apart from being one of the 3 cute little girls that I would see every week with their hair sort of all tied the same way, and you were the tiniest. You were still the tiniest when you went to the Northern Territory or somewhere far north, Queensland.
Queensland,
where was that?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was West Queensland.
How old were you?
16.
Wow. And you started writing emails to people who were interested. And of course, after the first email, I'm hooked. You have such an incredible gift with just putting words on a page or on a screen. And, I was entertained with your stories about frogs, or maybe they were cane toads, but, some pretty interesting situations that you got yourself into in this really remote area in Australia.
Yeah.
And you are still writing and probably writing more prolifically. So tell us about what inspires you to write, to put words together and share it with people?
That's a good question, because I think that it has evolved a bit over the years. So obviously when I moved to Queensland, it was a very remote station. So the closest town was 3 hours drive away. And we obviously didn't go there much. I think I went maybe twice the whole time that I was there. And so emailing was just this way I could connect with people who I had left, because obviously I moved straight from my hometown that I have lived my whole life to Queensland, where I knew nobody. And so emailing was just this way that I could connect with people. And there was a few people who would email back, and we would just carry on emailing each other like the whole time that I was away. And it wasn't until I moved from that station to a different station in northern Queensland, and there I was still sending emails, but I just sort of started to diarise and journal things for myself, and I really enjoyed doing that. And then I think I kind of just gave it a break. I had a period, I moved back to my hometown, I got married, we started having kids, and actually it was after the birth of our first child. He had like a really scary, when he was 4 weeks old, he had a really scary, I don't even know, no one actually knows. He got really sick, he was on life support, he had to be resuscitated, he was flown to Westmead Hospital with this mysterious illness.
Wow.
And he was like, we call it miraculously healed, because he was on life support, and they were like, I don't know what's wrong, all the tests we're doing are coming back clear. And then he just got better, and so quickly, like within a week he was home and completely well again, and still nobody knows what was wrong. And it was a few months later, actually it might have even been a year later, that I thought, I need to write this down. Like, I just wanted to process it for myself, everything that happened. And as I was writing it, I'm like, this is actually such a really story that I can always look back on. That just encourages me, because we were so surrounded by people. We really felt the peace of God in all of it. And it was just a testimony to me. And I thought, I need to share this. And I thought, I'll start a blog. That was about 8 years ago, I think, 7 years ago. And it sort of just went from then. And so over that time, obviously I was deep into parenting then. We started having more kids. And I was just writing about my experience as a mum and ups and downs. And yeah, here we are today.
Yeah. And I think something that's really stood out to me about your writing is just the honest nature of it. And, I can see the progression from email being the thing to be connecting with. And
Yeah.
and so now your blog, what kind of people are you connecting with on the internet? Like, are they, is it mostly friends of friends, or?
It's a bit of a mix of people, friends and family, relatives who live away, who are close by, people who I don't actually know, but I've sort of met over through like writing, and people say, oh, I so related to that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's sort of just a really good mix of people.
Words are so powerful, and
Mm.
they can connect you across the globe with somebody else who you just might not connect with in any other way, but you've put words on a page that somebody resonates with and connects with. And,
Yeah.
I feel that it's so important that we're talking about connection because it matters more than ever. We are in a period in time, even before COVID, of significant isolation and loneliness impacting people's health and well-being. And,
Yeah.
I think there's nothing like that period of being a young mum. And, I did that once. I had that that period once in my life, and you've done that 4 times over. And I think there would be so many people feeling lost and alone in that time. And even I think we can still relate to the things that you write about when we're in a different situation, because some things are universal, aren't they? Yeah. What kind of things do you find yourself writing about that you might find universal truths that people all over the world might resonate with?
Probably one of the biggest things, like a lot of the people who read my blog are mums like myself, who obviously relate a lot to what I'm going through. And I'm really big on being really honest and vulnerable.
You're good at that.
And keeping it real because that's just what I wanted to base it all around. Because like I've fallen for this myself, where like late nights when you have a newborn, you're up late at night, you're breastfeeding, and you're just on social media trying to keep yourself awake. And every other mum out there just looks like they are going great, and they look beautiful, and their children look amazing, and their house is great, and like all the things that you feel like you're not nailing, you're like, everybody else is nailing this.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy to be deceived by social media. And so I was like, I'm not going to paint a pretty picture of what it's like. I really want to write stuff that's real and that people can relate to. And even some of the things that I've been through as a mum, people like, I've been scared to talk about it, like postnatal depression and anxiety. I've had that after every single child. And it's been horrendous. And it wasn't until after our 3rd child that I actually started talking about it to just a few close people. And it was amazing how obviously supportive they were, but how many people would say, oh, I'm going through that too, but you wouldn't know. And so it just kind of opened my eyes that people, I think, probably isn't for everybody, but I know that a lot of mums are probably afraid to open up and say what they're going through because they feel like they're the only one. I know I certainly felt like that.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing we want to do really well, but it is universal in that we can get into a trap of comparing ourselves, whether it's professionals looking at some other, like their competition or their peers, social media, and just going, they just nail it every time. They've got beautiful studios, or they've got beautiful backgrounds, or everything they say is so eloquent, so well put together. And of course, we read somebody's book and we think, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And my writing is just so messy and all over the place. But we compare our first draft to somebody else's published edition. And we have these conversations in our head that are so unfair to ourselves.
Yeah.
So every time I see something of yours come up on the internet, I'm just like, oh, go floss. This is so cool. And I often don't have time to engage in it, but I want you to know that it's appreciated and valued far beyond what you can imagine. Because for the people that do respond and tell you, like, I'm in Canada and I saw your post, and wherever they connect with you from, and they tell you that your words matter, there are so many people who have thought the same thing, but they just haven't reached out to you because maybe they're just really busy, or maybe they don't realize that their words of encouragement matter. And so I think we really have to take on board when somebody says thank you, that there's like 1,000 thank yous behind it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So true, Kerrie.
And do you get much criticism online? Because, you know, sometimes you put yourself out there, the more honest you are, the more risk you take for somebody to say something negative, and those things impact us so much. Have you experienced that?
I have not yet.
Cool.
And I feel like, you know, probably the day will come. But yes, as of yet, I have not experienced that. I have seen a lot of other people experience that, and I'm like, oh, you know, it's probably coming for me. But yeah, I guess I'm bracing myself. But, you know, at the same time, people voice their opinions, don't they? And people do that. And it's just, you've just got to, especially on the internet, you've just got to not take it personally.
Yeah.
And just stay true to your truth, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So let's just for a little walk down memory lane. Well, I'd love to hear about, you know, how you were as a connector when you were young, but we talked about, you know, when you're 16 and moving away. But let's talk about the younger Felicity, and then when we connected. And I'm not sure when we first connected, or how our journey began. Well, it probably began with your emails. Back then, when emails were even a new thing. But yeah, so as a child, were you, you know, comfortable in your own skin? Were you good at connecting, or is it something you've grown into?
That is a really funny question, because I was terrible at connecting. I was so shy. I think that I don't even know. Like, I remember going to church as a young girl, and I'd go to kids' church, and I still remember, I don't know how old I was. I must have been maybe 4. And I was in kids' church or Sunday school, whatever you call it. And the teacher was trying to ask me what my name was, and I was so shy. I could not speak at all.
Wow.
And she had to call my mum in. And as soon as my mum got there, I remember hiding behind her dress, and mum had to tell them my name. But I was always like that. I was this shy, quiet, timid girl. And yeah, I just wouldn't talk. My funny, I still remember this. My auntie used to call me no talk, because even around family, like if I was comfortable around people, like my own family, I was loud and just crazy, and they'll tell you that. But yeah, people who I didn't know very well, or where I wasn't comfortable, I was just very quiet. I had really low, like especially in my teenage years, I had very low self-esteem, and so that probably contributed a whole heap. Like, I'd go to youth camps and I'd just sit there by myself in the corner because I was just too afraid to talk to people. So I was a terrible connector. And it wasn't until, I mean, obviously moving away from home at 16, I was sort of forced, like I had to start talking to people. I still wasn't great, and I was super awkward. When I moved back a couple of years later, back to my hometown in Dubbo, I got a hairdressing apprenticeship, and I was still very shy and quiet, but like, hairdressers talk, and I was kind of forced into it, and I just had to, like, for my job, I had to talk, and I kind of found it ironic, but I actually enjoyed it. And I remember actually thinking when I started my apprenticeship, I'm like, this is going to be good for me, because I was actually tired of being the shy girl and tired of being afraid of hearing my own voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that sort of, I think that kind of got the ball rolling with connecting with people. And actually, I love it now. Like, I'm still a quiet person, and I'm still like pretty introverted, and you know, all that stuff. But I actually love talking to strangers when I have the courage to go talk to them. And it comes a lot more naturally and a lot more easily now. And yeah, I enjoy it. It's very interesting. You learn a lot, as you would know.
Yeah, absolutely. So just taking me back to the decision to go to North Queensland, was that something that you just decided, or did your parents encourage you to go and take on the world? What was that like?
Do you know what? I remember very random. I'd finished school and I was working as a gymnastics coach. And I think I'd been doing that for about a year. And randomly, I think it was at my grandparents' house. We used to go visit my grandparents like every week or every second week. And they had this magazine, and I think it was an Outback magazine.
Yeah.
And I was just flipping through it, and I saw this ad for a like an agricultural course. And my best friend at the time lived on a property, and I was always at her place, and like I had horses and motorbikes, and we were just always out in the countryside, and I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I saw the ad, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. So I rang up and applied, and got accepted, and did this course. And then after that, there was like a shearing course. So I was like, I'll do the shearing course. I was terrible at it. And then that sort of just got the ball rolling. And then because I loved working with kids as well, my mum was more so encouraging me. I didn't know what a governess was.
Yeah.
And my mum was the one that encouraged me to get into a governess role. And I really liked the sound of that. And so that's why I became a governess and did that. And obviously adventure. I've always been super adventurous. I love it. Love being out in the country. Yeah. And so, yes, mum and dad did not encourage me to move away.
Right.
They were like, oh, but they
Are
did
you sure?
Yeah. So they were very supportive of it, which I'm very grateful for.
I'm thinking that must have been after you did work experience for my dad. Remember you wanted to work on the farm?
Yes, I did. And I remember doing work experience with him. That was such a great week.
It must have been such a challenging week. So I've got our listeners who don't know Felicity. She's quite petite. And as a maybe 15-year-old, you just didn't have a lot of weight behind you to put the oomph into some of the challenging things that Dad had. Like his tractor was so old, you had to pretty much stand on the pedals to push them down to the floor to put it into gear and drive. So, you know, but you were so willing to take on physical challenges that you weren't necessarily built for. So you are remembered so fondly by my family. But you know,
really? Oh, that's funny.
Oh yeah. I think there were just so many things. It was just hard to reach things, or it was, you know, Dad just took things for granted that were like, you know, big heavy machinery, and you're like, I'll have a go.
Even though, I mean, I've failed a lot, I remember that week so well. And even just like your dad, credit to your dad, he's like the funniest person, and he's just so warm and accepting. And like I remember coming back from, I think we were out on the tractor, and I remember coming back from the sheds to the house, and he was like, oh, let's do some acrobatics, and he had me standing on his shoulders and like and then I think one night I remember doing his parachute with him. He was packing it up or taking it, or so it wasn't even just farm work, it was acrobatics and parachute lessons, and it was just so good.
And trapeze?
I don't actually remember.
The trapeze shed. It's a machinery shed, but there are trapeze swings hanging in the shed.
Right.
He might have had a big tractor or something parked in the way at that point. But he would have been delighted to know about your gymnastics training, because he did that. He was a PT instructor in the army, and we grew up with all kinds of obstacle courses and acrobatic challenges and everything. So I think he just really thought, cool. Let's try everything.
And I do remember at the end of the week, I got through the week, and at the end of the week, he was so lovely. He's like, look, I just don't think that this will work for you. And, you know, I'm like, you know, that's fine. I can see that that's probably the case. But, you know, he was just so encouraging anyway. And I just, have very fond memories of that.
Yeah, I think he's totally okay with having a go at things that we really can't do, but we'll have a go anyway and see, because we'll learn things in the process. And
exactly.
Now I'm grateful for those, you know, challenging moments on the farm where it's like, you know, can you reach this? Can you pull on this? Can you push that? It's like, no, I'm just not big and strong enough.
Exactly.
So I totally get it. I was just like, oh, how's this going to go? Um, and then at some stage, a couple of years later, when you came back from Queensland, I think before you got married, I was inspired to say, would you like to come and work with me?
Yes, yes,
I
that
think
was
you were
just
my,
after we got married.
oh, just after. So I think you
Yeah.
were my first PA. So I'm like, I don't know how to have an assistant, but let's do
And I
some
was
cool
like, I
things.
don't know how to be an assistant, but it was fun.
Yes. Well, we certainly connected well. I remember taking you to
We
Sydney for
did.
something
Yep,
and
yep.
um,
We stayed at like a backpackers or something, and I remember
yeah.
there was a couple of places actually. I think one was like a rooftop place, and there was a sauna and
Oh, the pool on the rooftop. Yeah. Sydney
new
Central
experiences.
YHA. Yeah.
Yep, yep. And you just knew Sydney so well, and I did not know Sydney so well. I was following your lead everywhere, but it was a good experience. I mean, I don't think I made a very good assistant to you, Kerrie.
I don't
But
know. I remember being sad to see you go.
oh,
Definitely.
it
And
was
I,
it was definitely a good experience. Mm.
yeah, yeah. And I think, we sat at the school swimming carnival. I loved that I never missed a swimming
Yeah,
carnival of Ethan's. But we took the
yeah,
laptop down there and,
yeah,
we sat there and
yeah,
did a bit of work, lots of chatting. Yeah, so we probably
yeah,
did a lot more, conversation than actually getting any work done. But you did help us with
yeah.
consistent
Absolutely.
newsletters and all kinds of cool things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
writing part of it, that was good.
yeah. So I love that you can talk about anything when you write about anything.
Mhm.
So let's see how we go with conversation. But
Okay.
so tell us, how old were you when you got married? And maybe what have you learned as a connector in a relationship like this? Because we,
Mm.
our connection with our husbands change over time and we're always
Mhm.
learning about ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, I probably would hate it if somebody asked me these questions on a podcast, and here I am going, Felicity, what would you like to share?
Oh, it's fine. Um, well, I was 19 when we got married. So it'll be 11 years next month. I
Wow.
still don't feel old enough to say that. um, yeah, funny. Like I remember because I was doing my hairdressing apprenticeship at the time, so we were engaged, and I'd just be talking to our clients and be like, "Oh, getting married next month or whatever," and like their reactions were hilarious. Some of them were just speechless,
Yeah.
and others. One lady said, "Does your mum know about this?" And one lady, oh, there was a few like comments. I can't remember them all, but yeah, I just remember going home and just being so like laughing at them. Anyway, so I was 19. We've been married 11 years, and yes, wow, it does change. The dynamics change so much, especially when you add in 4 children
Yeah.
and running a business and like all these things that just they could so sabotage your marriage.
Yeah.
But you've just got to work on it so much. And I think like one of the key things that Nick and I have always done from the very beginning is just be really open with each other and talk about everything, like
Yeah.
literally everything, like how we're feeling, what's happened. We upset each other. We just always talk about it and
Mm.
always clear the air and don't let anything go untouched. So we're really open and honest. And I think
Yeah.
that has been like a key thing for us.
Yeah. And it's easy to say something like that, but we're going to come back and unpack that in a minute. But I was
Mm-hmm.
just thinking, as you talked about, so you got married, which is a personal development journey in itself, to have a
Yeah.
marriage, to have that kind of relationship. Then to be married and have a business together is another level of personal development. And then probably each child adds a new layer of personal development journey.
Absolutely.
And so you really have the trifecta there. Um, so,
Yeah.
so congratulations. But it sounds like it's really open, honest conversations have been essential in probably retaining your sanity and
Yep.
and still being here 11 years down the track, smiling and laughing and just adoring him and your kids, you know, so much more than
Yep.
ever. I hear, you know, I see that. So when you say that, you know, if you upset each other, then you'll talk about that. So what's the language that you would use if Nick is completely oblivious to the fact that he's done something to upset you? How do you bring it up?
Well, I'd like to say like I have this one standard answer. But, you know,
well, tell me what you find works.
Because sometimes I'll just blurt it out while I'm still really angry and upset, and it just won't come out nice at all.
Right.
So then it's like another, you have to sort of go away, calm down, and then come back and re-talk about it.
Yeah.
But I guess mostly the language I use. So if Nick's upset me, and it's heated and intense and whatever, I generally have learned to step back a bit and just calm and kind of just regroup in my head, actually. Like, I don't want to sound cliche saying that, but when you put things into perspective, some things you're like, is it really worth being angry over that?
Yeah.
But I'll just say to him, like, oh, when you said that or when that happened, I feel like this. And that sort of just opens up the conversation.
Yeah.
And half the time he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. So that's often how we start the conversation.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, this happened, or you said this and I felt, rather than you made me feel, or you did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. When this occurred.
Yeah.
When this occurred between us, this is what was occurring for me personally. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because nobody's a mind reader, and we don't fully understand what's going on for the other person. Yeah. That's amazing.
Right. And Nick is such a chilled out person. Like, it takes him a bit to get angry, or upset or whatever. So I kind of feel sorry for him a bit, because he's always got to keep up with me and all my emotions and, you know, all the things. And so, yes, I feel like it's probably a little bit harder for him than it is for me at times. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious about, like, just having the emotional language to be able to express what you're feeling. Is that something that you grew up with, or is it something that you've learned?
That's a good question. I don't remember growing up with that. And I can't even remember at what time it came in. But I do remember just hearing people, and I can't even remember who specifically, but just married people just saying that it's so important to be open and talk in relationship, in your marriage. And specifically, I've heard a few times people saying, don't say you made me feel blah, blah, blah. Like how much it can change the conversation if you just come out and say, when you did this, I felt, because you're not like putting blame on them. You're not trying to make them feel like a horrible person, because they probably didn't even know in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard that from. I just remember hearing it and going, actually, I want to utilize that in my marriage.
Yeah, that's great. I think we can pick up so many pearls of wisdom from people, and they might, you know, come packaged slightly differently, but there's that theme of taking responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings, and, you know, being open to express that. Yeah, that's really powerful. Right. So I could talk to you for ages, but let's cover a couple of quick things. What do people, you know, where do people go to find what you're putting out in the online world if they're looking for encouragement, especially mums or people that are wanting to have really honest conversations? I just think some of the language that you use, it's like, wow, okay, maybe I can say that, because we might not be able to express ourselves, but we read someone's honest thoughts. Yeah, so where do people find you?
Yeah. So I have a website, which is www.felicitytaylor.com.au. That's just got my blog posts, it's got inspiring stories, things like that. And I just have like a Facebook page, Felicity Taylor, and an Instagram, which is felicity.taylor_, I think.
Okay.
I don't even know my own Instagram name.
We'll put all those links in the show notes anyway.
Cool.
And one thing that I've wondered about is you often refer to your children as the wilds. So tell me about that.
Where do I start? I started calling them the wilds a few years ago. I think it was even before our fourth child was born. Um, and because they just are wild, and I don't know, I just kind of said it once and it just kind of stuck. And so now they are just the wilds. And I just feel like it suits them because I'm super, you know how I've seen memes before, where, okay, I'm thinking of a specific one. It's like a nude little kid hanging off a gate with like a cowboy hat on, and it's like free range kids here.
Yeah.
And how do I put it in words? Like, I'm super big on our kids just experiencing life around them and just not running wild because, obviously we have boundaries and discipline and all that stuff, but in the sense of just roaming around in the countryside and just having adventures and going wild.
Yeah.
That's fine with me, and it suits them. They do that well. They are always in the dirt and the mud, in the paddocks, just loving life.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you just give them this freedom of expression, and if it means dirt and mud and torn clothes or something, it's like there's this acceptance of
go for it.
This is this is part of growing up, and this is part of expressing yourself and exploring. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Is that how you grew up?
I think so. I mean, I had very, very strict dad, and I don't think that I'm as strict. Actually, I'm not as strict at all. But I did grow up. I did grow up on a block of land, and we were just always out in the bush, just playing with all kinds of things that we could find, making little teepees. Like, that's just how I grew up. And yeah, I love that. And our kids, I mean, where we live has kind of created the atmosphere for that because we live on a block of land and they've just got space to run around and do whatever. They've got motorbikes and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I guess my upbringing has sort of contributed to that.
Yeah, that's cool. And when it comes to connecting with 4 children and seeing their need for connection with each other and with you and with Nick, what is it that you're most intentional about?
Probably the most thing, especially recently, I kind of got, our fourth child was born, and I remember looking at our oldest son, our only son, and he was 5 at the time. And I just thought, my goodness, I have had a baby like pretty much your whole life. Like, I've had a baby and a toddler. And I thought, I mean, I know you're my son, but I'm like, I haven't actually intentionally spent one-on-one time with you that often because I've always had another child that demands so much of my attention. And from that point, I was like, I need to be super intentional about having one-on-one time with each of our kids because, I mean, gosh, they grow up so quickly. And so, I can't do that all the time. I would love to just have the freedom to go take them on a date or something every week, just one-on-one time with all 4 of them, but that's not reality. But just being intentional to drop what I'm doing at times and connecting with, one of my kids at a time, just even for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, means the world to them. And it sort of, fills their tank up. I've noticed that as they get older, they also want a lot more one-on-one time with me. And so just trying to nurture that. It's a struggle. Like, I don't do it well at all. I am far from perfect. But that's my one thing, and I have been really, really trying to be like focus on that. Just 5 minutes a day, just even if it's just sitting down and talking, even just giving them my time at bedtime instead of just rushing to the next kid to tuck them into bed or rushing back downstairs to do the dishes and all that stuff. Just actually stopping and being present. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Because I'm hearing when you say, sometimes it means dropping what you're doing. So it's not like scheduling, a certain amount of time with each one, but as the need arises, you're choosing to be present and tune in, which is beautiful. They'll remember that.
I hope so. is very hard to do.
Yeah, but it is that constant awareness and being present and ready to tune in or take a step back, as you said earlier when you're talking about Nick. So as you were just describing that, and I was remembering, having a 5-year-old, and when you came to work for me, that was before I had I had a baby, didn't I? I had a small child.
You did, yeah.
In school, that's right, yeah. And so but I totally get how they grow up really quickly, since he's now 20. So I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah. I know. I look at that and I'm like, I'm pretty I think he was Chad's age when I was working for you, and I'm like, that does not feel like that long ago.
Yeah.
Scary. Kind of scary.
Right. Yeah. Time certainly flies. And I'm grateful for those moments of being intentional. Intentional parenting makes a world of difference. And like for me, I'm really grateful for my coach training that I started when Ethan was 4, because I was like, I can see what's going on in the brain. And when you describe a child's brain, it's really like an adult's brain. We all crave attention and connection. We all want to be heard and have autonomy to make a decision. So it really matters that we just pause and think about the conversations that we have and the way we connect. And I love having this conversation with you. But we won't go on all day. I'm going to send people to your blog.
Okay.
And thank you for connecting. Thanks for having time for me with such a busy day as you would always have. Where are the wilds at the moment?
They are riding outside. They're on motorbikes outside, riding around. Nick is with them. They are not by themselves.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Parental supervision.
Putting that in there.
So what's next for the Taylor family?
What's next? Well, we're currently renovating our house, and we are selling our business, and we are planning to do some traveling around Australia. So that is our next adventure.
That's amazing.
Hopefully soon.
So 6 people, 6 smallish people,
mm-hmm.
taking the road. What kind of accommodation do you have?
Well, we have a bus, which we have to obviously build into a little home, and I'm super excited about it. But I'm also I try not to think about all the it's going to be so squishy and all the things. Like, we live in our house is actually quite large, and I love it because there's just space.
Yeah.
And I always think, oh my goodness, we're squishing 6 of this into a little bus. What are we doing? What are we thinking? But I think that, Nick and I both, it's not like a last minute decision. We've been planning this and been wanting to do it for, I think, 3 years now, maybe 2 years. So it's been a process, and it's been a lot of planning and a lot to get to where we are now. So yes, it's been well thought out, and I don't think we know what we're getting ourselves into, but I think that it will be good.
And I think we'll be able to read about it on the blog. So tell me, is it?
Yeah.
We'll be able to laugh along with you.
Yeah.
Is it a bus like the size of a school bus, or is it a smaller bus?
It's like a big school bus size. I think it's 30 something foot.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is it a double-decker bus or just a regular bus?
No. Oh my goodness. I'd love a double-decker bus. Wouldn't that be great? But no,
there's
it's just
one
a
out
regular.
on the farm, actually. Dad's got an old double-decker bus at the farm.
Really?
Someone left there. It was their spare bus because they did up their first bus, and upstairs was this incredible bedroom. It was amazing. And then downstairs was like their kitchen and, and where they'd sit in the front and drive. Yeah, just amazing. But the bus on the farm is probably beyond help. So all the best in your bus.
Thank you.
I hope it's just an incredible, I think an amazing experience for your kids to grow up seeing more of Australia, and they might not have space in the bus, but they'll certainly find space outside it. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. We're going to be doing a lot of living outside.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming and sharing your thoughts, Felicity, and some of your story. It's really lovely, and thank you for being someone who, shares honest, encouraging thoughts with the world, because you do make a much bigger difference than you know.
Thank you, Kerrie. Thanks so much for having me.
So welcome. So one thing that I want to say as I wrap up is to all of our friends listening is that it's not just Felicity who makes a bigger difference than she knows. We all do, and we forget that one word of encouragement or thank you that someone shares does represent so much more. Yeah, and they say this in politics. If someone writes to a politician, that represents a certain number of people, and it's quite significant. So yeah, if you get those negative words or just the negative conversation in your head, you've got to remember that you do make a difference. And if your intention is to make a difference, to encourage or to support or whatever words, whatever language you might put around it, if you are intentional about serving the world or serving your little corner of the world, then you do make a bigger difference than you know. And in terms of a little update, I've got a couple of really exciting things coming up online, connecting you with more people, book launch events, and the Connect with Confidence program is online and going to be shared with people right across the world. I'm so excited about connecting people from different countries, because you can go and do a communications course, and that's great. We can learn, by reading and listening, but to engage with this program, we're engaging with people from so many different countries, and that is super exciting. And there's one of Felicity's young ones coming looking for her. So go have a fantastic afternoon, Floss. Thank you so much again for your time. And
thank you,
thank
Kerrie.
you to everyone listening to Connect with Confidence. Have a great day. Bye.